Hello, welcome to Fabulous Food. Today we're going to be making a chocolate brownie. So the first thing to do is to preheat your oven to 180 degrees C, or if you've got a fan oven, 160 degrees. And the next job is to line our baking tray. Now normally at school I'd do this for you, but I can teach you how to do it at home. So here's my tin, it's about 20 centimetres square. I'm going to put a little bit of oil in the bottom, just a tiny bit. And then I'm going to use a piece of kitchen paper just to rub that all around the tin. You could use a pastry brush if you've got one at home, like that. So that's greasing the tin, that's the first thing. And the second thing is to line it. So I've cut a piece of baking parchment that's bigger than my tin. So when I lift the sides of the parchment up, they just come to the top of my tin. And the next job is to cut the corners from the paper like this, so all four corners. And I get my tin and put my baking parchment centrally in the middle and just ease it in like that. And it'll be a little bit creased at the moment because we need to make some adjustments like that. And then with my scissors I'm going to snip down in the corner to the bottom, and then that will help the edge sit. So I'll show you another corner. So we snip down like that to the bottom of the tin, and then the two pieces of paper just fold and fit the tin perfectly. So there you have your greased and lined tin, and you could hear the beeper going off in the background there. That's my oven come up to temperature 2. So looking at the recipe book, number 2 says melt the chocolate and butter gently in a saucepan. Heat as little as possible. So here's my saucepan, here's my chocolate. I've weighed it already, I've got 175 grams. The easiest way to break chocolate up is to do it while it's still in the packet, like this, and then you don't get melty fingers. So I've done most of it, just saved a little bit to show you. So I'm going to tip that straight in my pan because I've already weighed that in the chocolate packet. And then I'm going to put my saucepan on the scales. I'm going to set it to 0 and I'm going to weigh in 175 grams of unsalted butter. So I've got my butter and my chocolate in the pan now. I'm going to take it over to the heat and just melt it very gently on a low heat, just so it's melted. We don't want it to boil. So while my butter and chocolate are melting, I am going to keep an eye on it, but I'm going to move on to the next stage. I'm going to put my sugar and my eggs into a bowl and I'm going to whisk them with a hand mixer until they're thick and creamy. So set the scales to 0 and weigh out 250 grams of caster sugar. So I've got 250 grams of caster sugar, and then I'm going to crack my eggs into a jug. They don't crack very well on the edge of a plastic bowl. 1, 2, check that you haven't got any shell going into the jug as well. 3. And then I'm just going to gently whisk them with a fork before I add them to the sugar. And pop them in there. So before I move on to the next stage, I want to make sure I've got everything ready so I can assemble it quickly, and we want to keep all the air in the egg and sugar mixture. So I've got my eggs and my sugar ready to whisk. I've got my chocolate and butter mix, which is melted and is now cooling slightly. And I've weighed out into this bowl my plain flour and my cocoa powder. So that's 75 grams of plain flour and 40 grams of cocoa powder. And in here I've got 50 grams of chocolate chips. So everything's ready to go. So using a hand mixer, or if you haven't got a hand mixer, you could use a wooden spoon. Just going to gently mix it to start with before I put any power on. and then mix it like that. So I've whisked it until it's thick and creamy. I'm going to take the blades out, give them a gentle tap on the bowl, set them aside. So the next ingredient to add is the melted butter and chocolate. I'm just scraping it off the wooden spoon. So I've got myself a spatula. I don't want to waste any, leave it in the saucepan. Just going to scrape all that into the whisked egg and sugar, like that. And then we're going to fold it in. So folding means coming around the edge of the bowl, cutting through the middle, like that. You can see it's beginning to marble, and then eventually it will all look the same. So the idea of folding is to keep as much of the air in the mixture as possible, as we've just gone to all that effort to put the air in the first place. So around the bowl, through the middle, like that. And once everything looks the same, we're going to sift in the flour and cocoa mix and tip in the chocolate drops. I think that's okay now. I'm going to get my sieve, put my flour and cocoa in the bowl, just give it a shake like that. If you've got any lumps, you might need just to press them through with a spoon. Quite often cocoa powder goes a bit lumpy. There we are, all gone. Dip the chocolate drops in and then give it one final mix. So scrape around the edge of the bowl because you want to get all the powders down the side of the bowl and into your mix. So I'm still folding, I'm going around the edge, cutting through the middle, like that. So you're mixing dry ingredients with wet ingredients, so you want everything to look the same, you want it all to be wet once you've finished, but keeping as much air in the mix as possible. There, I think that's just about done. So make sure you're going through the bottom of the bowl as well. You don't want lots of dry ingredients in the bottom. I'm going to get my brownie tin and I'm going to pour that lovely brownie mixture into the tin. So remember to scrape round the bowl with your spatula. So that's good for two reasons. It keeps the chocolate out of your washing up water, and it also means that we don't have any waste. You want to get everything into your brownie tin so it gets cooked in the oven. Just gently wipe your spatula on the side of the bowl like that. And then I'm going to put that into my preheated oven for 35 minutes. Give it a little shake so it goes into the corners of the tin like that. And in 35 minutes we'll take it out. It should be lovely and crusty on the top with just a slight wobble underneath. So I've taken my brownie out of the oven. It had 35 minutes to cook, and you can see now that it's cracked on the top, and I can see it's cooked around the edges. It's beginning to come away from the tin, so that would be fine, and it will set a bit more as it cools. So your recipe book tells you to cool it completely in the tin, and that you can also pop it in the fridge overnight, which will make it easier to cut tomorrow. So if you're going to do that, wait till it's cold, wrap it with some cling film or foil, pop it in the fridge till the next day. I very much doubt any of you will be able to wait that long. So once it's cool enough, you can lift it by the baking parchment out of the tin onto the cooling rack and just leave it to cool, and then you can eat it, perhaps with some ice cream. I hope you enjoy it, and please send us some photographs of your chocolate brownies, and see you next time. Bye bye.